Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing the game between the Sharks and the Rangers, in which the Sharks have lost 3-2. So the two games against the Rangers this season are now 2 losses, and both games were there for the Sharks to take. Both games ended up going into the third period tied, I believe, at 2, but as was the case last game, tonight, it was the Rangers who were the team who managed to get the only goal in the third period to take the victory in the end. Not as though the Sharks necessarily needed the points, but it would have been nice to get the victory. And this game started off in the first period very heavily in favor of the Sharks. They heavily outshot the Rangers. And while the Rangers only with 3 shots, they did get a good amount of chances. I feel like their 3 shots also included a couple of other decent opportunities. So it wasn't necessarily all San Jose, but they were very clearly the better team. However, it was only an exchange of goals in that first period. The Rangers would get one from Jesper Fast, as well as the Sharks getting one from Thornton. Come second period, Thornton would get another on the power play to make it 2-1 San Jose, before Zibanejad pretty later on would tie it up at 2 going into the third, as I said. But Jesper Fast, just a few minutes into the third period, would get the lead for the Rangers, and they would never relinquish that lead again, and the Sharks would end up dropping. Even though they managed to put up a ton of shots, they ended up getting somewhat stonewalled by this Rangers rookie phenom goaltender Shesterkin. First thing to talk about would be Aaron Dell, as he ended up getting the start tonight. Not too much of a surprise. We already knew that was going to be the case, and we know tomorrow it will be Martin Jones, and Dell had a pretty solid game. While the Sharks did outshoot the Rangers still had over 30 shots for themselves and a lot of great chances, because the thing about the Rangers is that this team is very awful defensively. I mean, watching this game, there are very few teams in the league who I would say have a worse defensive system, or at least play a worse defensive system than the Rangers, but they also have a ton of talent through their 12 forwards. I mean, watching Panarin tonight was like watching like an artist. It was like watching Picasso paint. At that point, he was very, very good. And so the Rangers are going to give up a lot of shots, but they're going to get a lot of great chances. And so Dell did do a very good job at stopping some of them. He managed to save breakaways. He had probably the save of the game on a great 2-on-1 save. But in the end, it didn't end up mattering. The Sharks would end up losing. He didn't have much of a chance on this fast one. As I said, great play by Panarin. Same goes for the one by Zibanejad. And then the second one by Fast as well. Just kind of a tough situation for Dell to jump into. He did his best, but they end up losing anyhow. Next, I'll talk about Evander Kane. So there was some excitement. Kane coming back to the lineup. The Sharks were without Couture, Hertl, as I say basically every review. And so there was some obvious holes offensively for the Sharks, so Kane coming back from that suspension was supposed to give them a boost, but instead actually worked against them because Kane had a pretty bad game. Now, offensively, he had a few good chances, obviously 2 huge breakaways that he ended up not being able to score on, but obviously the big blemish here is his 2 big giveaways that led to the first 2 Rangers goals. Now, the second one on Zibanejad wasn't necessarily a giveaway as much as it was just a careless play by Kane, not really paying attention to his surroundings. The first one was just pure giveaway. And as I've pointed out before, Kane, when the team does get trapped in the defensive zone for a bit too long, Kane can have a tendency to just make really bad defensive plays, trying to rush it up way too fast. And so Kane ended up doing that in this game, and he actually ended up getting benched for it. So now that the Sharks are no longer in the playoffs, they have, I guess, the luxury, I guess you could say, to actually be able to bench some of their better players if they're not doing well. I can bet you if the Sharks were 2 points out of a playoff spot, even though Kane was having a pretty bad game, a really bad game, you could say, he probably would have found himself on the ice trying to catch up, because he is technically their best option to score a goal. But I guess you're trying to send a message here going into the further games of this season that you still have to play well, even if the Sharks don't have much of a chance for the playoffs. Next, I'll talk about Ferraro. Now, Mario Ferraro is at an interesting season as the main rookie for the Sharks. Obviously, there have been others this season, but the main one to start the year was Mario Ferraro as the Sharks' 6th defender. And he has been having an extremely up and down year. There have been times where he looked like he has belonged at the NHL, but there also have been times where you're seeing that maybe it's not all there yet, but that's usually the case for most rookies who are sort of borderline on the NHL. Ferraro did have a very good game here tonight. He was able to pressure the Rangers, he was able to make some good offensive plays, and he was also doing very solid defensively, which has been somewhat of an issue for Ferraro, especially in the past few games. So it was nice to see the Sharks' main rookie step up here a bit in this one. And finally, I'll talk about Joe Thornton, as I should. He scored both goals here for the San Jose Sharks, doubled up his goal total on the year, but there's obvious rumors flying around that Thornton could end up being traded at the deadline, and that would be pretty sad to see. Thornton has been here for 15 or so years with the Sharks. He's been sort of the heart of this team for so long. And he ends up putting these 2 goals on the board, and these could potentially be the last 2 goals he scores for the San Jose Sharks. They do have yet another game tomorrow against the Islanders, so he could technically score there. But after that, the deadline is on Monday, and it's possible Thornton gets moved, so that would be sad to see. But the fact of the matter is that while the Sharks have had Thornton for 15 years, and it's been a very successful 15 years, and Thornton has done very, very well, and I'm sure he loves playing with San Jose and on the Sharks and with the team and in front of the fans, but the fact of the matter is that the Sharks have never gotten him to the place where he wanted to go, which is that's raising the Stanley Cup above his head. The Sharks have come close, but have never made it, so if Thornton really wants to go to a contender, I certainly can't blame him in that situation. It's obviously a gamble, as whatever contender he goes to doesn't have that great of a chance of winning the Stanley Cup, the hardest award to win in all of sports, so many people say. But again, can't really blame him for trying. And so if the Sharks do trade him, and this could potentially be Thornton's last year, it's certainly been a great run, and it was nice to see him get these last 2 goals in this potential last game or second to last game with the Sharks. But that will do it for this review. The Sharks will be back in action tomorrow. As I said, they'll face off against the Islanders. Their one game against the Islanders this season was a victory 2-1 in overtime. That was scored, I believe, by Logan Couture. I don't think he'll actually be back for tomorrow's game, so we'll see if someone else can play heroics for the Sharks. The Islanders have been pretty shaky as of late. They are really fighting for a playoff spot when 20-30 games ago it looked like they were pretty secure, so we'll see what happens. Class dismissed.